はい、7時半に過ぎてます。1分になりましたので、始めたいと思います。本日は、FOREX.com ウェビナーご参加いただきましてありがとうございます。海外アナリストから学ぶトレード戦略ということで、本日は始めたいと思っておりますので、よろしくお願いいたします。はい、まずはですね、Thank you for coming today, David.
No, it's great to be here. Thanks so much for hosting me.
Yeah, we are so excited about your webinar. Let me introduce you in Japanese at first. デビットさんはですね、本日のゲスト、デビットさんなんですが、トレードスタイルスウィングトレードということで、銀行で10年以上の経験を持たれる、元、FX と証券ディーラーということです。で、もともとロイター、ウォールストリートジャーナル、オーストラリアンフィナンシャルレビュー等ですね、定期的にコメント掲載されているんですが、もともとジャーナリストとして活動していたこともあってですね、今回もマーケット情報を広く皆様に伝えたいということで、日本の、向けのセミナー開催に至ったというところです。はい、本日の内容、簡単に最初に私がチェックしたところを皆様にお伝えさせていただきたいと思います。3つのキードライバーということでお話で、債券、過去金利、ドル、中国経済ということを中心にお話しいただきます。あとですね、皆様これが一番聞きたいことなんじゃないかなと思いますが、海外から見た今の日本の状況だとか、今後の日銀政策の方針だとか、そういったこともお話しいただければと思っております。あとですね、日経225、ナスダック、ドル円中心にですね、チャートの解説も行っていただきたいと思ってますので、先ほどもちょっといろいろ今動きがたくさんある状況なので、忙しいというようなコメントありましたが、いろいろ聞いてみたいなと本日は思っております。あと、最後にですね、また説明させていただくんですが、新規の今まで CFD 株価指数取引されてない方に向けにですね、キャンペーンを行いたいと思っております。で、対象の方にはですね、明日メール差し上げますので、またそこら辺も詳細見て、ぜひぜひ申し込んでいただければ、新規の取引、CFD の新規取引で応援資金として1000円、申請させていただきますので、ぜひぜひちょっとチェックしていただければなと思います。OK。I finished my Japanese part.
Thank you, Martha. Like, share the screen if we can. Then
Please, please share your PowerPoint to begin with.
I'm just having some trouble here sharing the screen. There we go.
No, it's okay. Maybe. Oh.
That
Can
looks
you
better.
can you share screen again? Can you try that again?
There we go. And there we go. Hopefully it's on your screen now saying Japan Client Webinar. It's September the 21st, 2023.
No, not yet. We're not. I can't see your screen yet.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
How about now?
I think it's starting. Yes. Thank you.
There we go. Technology has never been a strong point of mine, so do bear with me with this. But as you see, the date, September 21st, it's a pretty important day out there at the moment. As you can probably see, anyone who's been paying attention to financial markets over the past 12 hours or so, it's been quite volatile. A lot of movement following the Federal Reserve meeting, and very interesting the way that the markets are reacting as well, heading into the Bank of Japan meeting. For the first time in a long time, there's some speculation that we might see the Bank of Japan flag the potential for normalizing policy, and that's creating a lot of volatility in Japanese pairs, including the dollar yen. So we'll go through all of that today in the webinar. Let's go and kick off with some of the key areas that I want to go and look at. Now, for me personally, there are three things that are really important right now. It doesn't matter whether you're a beginner when it comes to trading, intermediate or an advanced trader. the things that are really driving the market are all very similar at this point in time. And the first one, as you can see on your screen, is the bond market, in particular, the US bond market. A lot can happen in the space of 24 hours. When I wrote this yesterday, you can see US yield curve threatening to push to new highs on high energy prices and debt issuance. Well, I can tell you last night, the Federal Reserve, by flagging that there's likely to be potentially another hike later this year, and then less rate cuts coming through in 2024, that's ruptured. So we're seeing 2-year yields, 1-year yields, 5-year yields, 10-year yields, and even 20-year yields have all risen to fresh highs. And that has caused a very, very big increase in the US dollar, which we'll get to next. Now, when it comes to bond markets, there's various parts of the curve that you should pay attention to when it comes to various asset classes. I put there 2 to 5 years, so the front end of the curve, or the belly of the curve, the 5-year tenor that some people refer to as, are very influential when it comes to FX market movements. So you see that they reflect what traders, what investors believe that central banks are likely to go and do in the future. Now, earlier on today, we saw the Japanese yen go and weaken to the softest level versus the US dollar since October of last year. Now, the reason for that is because we saw 2-year yield differentials between the United States and Japan going widen to multi-decade highs. So it just shows you the importance when it comes to attraction of money. You naturally will gravitate to things that will give you the greatest return. Risk-free rates in the United States are the most liquid treasury market in the world. Naturally, investors gravitate towards that, and now they get the extra yield as well, which is sucking a lot of capital from other parts of the world. When it comes to other asset classes, particularly to the stock market in particular, the 10-year tenor, the benchmark yields are very, very important. In Japan, of course, are anchored at 0% by the Bank of Japan, not offering a lot of pickup. But elsewhere in the world, very, very high indeed. Tonight, as we speak right now, the US 10-year yield is unraveling almost. It's rising very, very quickly and much faster than many people were expecting, which is causing some pretty aggressive selling in US equity futures as well. So we'll discuss that when we look at the charts when it comes to some of these various stock indices that we'll go through in a moment. One thing I want to go and point out, there's lots of pessimism out there at this point in time. People are seeing a lot of big declines coming through. But one thing that is a positive at this stage is that US bond market volatility is starting to go in lower. Now, on your screen, you can see the chart there. This is known as the MOVE Index. It's released by Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and it looks at the expected volatility of US bonds over a 30-day period ahead. It's basically the equivalent of the stock market VIX in the United States, of people who have come across that particular product. So it measures what volatility is expected to be in the future. And whilst it's still very elevated relative to history, indeed, you can see at this point in time, even with the recent decline, it's still only very been surpassed once in modern times, and that was back during the GFC. But because it's on the way down, I can't get myself really, really bearish about what's going on at this point in time. If you have certainty about what bond markets are likely to do, other factors in the markets are likely to go and calm down eventually as well. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're looking at what's going on at the moment, is to not panic, not to get caught up in a lot of the emotion that we're seeing at this point in time, because one of the really key factors that drive broader markets is starting to die down in terms of volatility. Whether it remains that way, we'll see, but that's something to keep in mind right now. Now, as mentioned, we saw that the yields across the US curve, short end belly, back end of the curve, have all hit fresh highs. Also, we've seen today real yields. So the tip curve, it's what it's called in the United States, which takes bond yields and it strips out what expected inflation is likely to be. So the real return on bonds also went and rose to the highest levels since just before the GFC. So give or take about a 15-year high. Generally, that does not go well for riskier asset classes that don't offer very high yield or have no yield at all. Now, we saw today, SoftBank in Japan is one of those companies that has a lot of expected earnings in the future. It got hit pretty hard. The NASDAQ overnight got hit pretty hard as well. It has been hit very, very hard. in Asian and European trade again today, it has a lot of earnings in the future. And so at this point in time, I know with these real yields ratcheting higher, it's going to place those longer duration growth stocks. And also you would imagine gold under some pressure as well, although gold has held up pretty well to this point. The last point on this particular slide I want to talk about is the asymmetric bond breakout risk. So what that means is that it doesn't take much for bonds to go and push higher here to go and cause a lot more damage to asset valuations elsewhere around the world. And we're seeing that today as well. I don't expect we're going to see too much of a lift higher in US yields from here, but even if it's only small, 10 basis points, 20 basis points across the curve, it's likely to do some pretty significant damage to some areas of the financial markets. If it was to go and subside back, I don't expect it would have anywhere near the same impact on financial markets, at least not in the near term. Martha, is there any questions that you'd like to go and ask?
Yeah. Please continue, but before that, I will explain in Japanese a little bit.
Sure.
すいません。簡単に説明をさせていただければなと思うんですが、まず、マーケット、今の現在のマーケット重要なポイントということで、まず一つ目の金利債券金利ということで、日米の金利差をお話しされておりました。はい。米国債券市場のボラティリティが低下していて、その結果、リスク先行にプラスということで、株式、投資だったりとか、ドル買いに向かうのではというお話ですね。この、債券市場、アメリカの債券市場のボラティリティ、このムーブ指数というんですかね、このチャートに関しては、2022年の3月以来の低水準になっていると。ボラティリティの低下っていうのは、株や株式だったりとか、ドル買いに向かうという兆候ですよという話をされておりました。あとですね、そうですね。まとめて言うと、そのような話になってたんですが、はい。グロース株より、グロース株より、バリュー株に今お金が流れてるみたいな話もちょっとされておりましたね。はい。Thank you sorry for interrupting your seminar. Please continue.
No problem. That's fine. Let's go to the next area. I'll try and go and keep these a little bit briefer and maybe a little bit more simplified to go and help with the translation effects. The next key thing that I think all traders need to be watching right now is what's happening with the US dollar. I mentioned what's been going on with bond yields, the attraction that US yields are giving to international investors, essentially, offering such a high yield relative to other parts of the world. It's sucking money from other areas of the financial markets, so in Asia, Europe, and other parts of the world. And that's really supporting the dollar gains. So the DXY is the US dollar index. It's around about a 57% weighting for the euro. So a reflection of what happens with the euro dollar and also predominantly the USD Japanese yen. So at this point in time, you can see that it's currently sitting at 6-month highs and it is rocketing higher over the past little bit. Certainly, it looks like there's not a lot of things stopping it when it comes to upside from these potential levels. One thing I'm finding really interesting as well out there at this point in time, I came across this earlier today. I don't usually do technical analysis when it comes to the dollar index. It's not something you can readily go and trade, but you can see here there's something that's going to cause a golden cross. The 50-day moving average is about to go and cross over the 200-day moving average from below. And that's generally taken as a very bullish signal. So potentially we might go and see further gains in that because a lot of traders will be triggered to go long if that were to go and take place. And it looks like it's going to happen the next couple of days. Also, I know that I've got a few questions before about what positioning looks like. So speculative positioning, what traders are doing out there at this dollar positioning is not even net long. More traders out there at the moment, based off data that was released earlier this week, are still net short the US dollar rather than net long. So there's still a lot of position adjustments potentially that could come through and drive that dollar higher. Now, when it comes to some of the factors that are driving that, we know that central banks around the world are starting to go and either end rate hikes or signal that they're likely to go and end rate hikes. We saw the ECB last week go and say that. The US is not in that position right now, and that's one of the factors that is driving this US dollar strength. Also, risk aversion is another one. I was talking with Martha earlier today about the dollar smile index. When it comes to the dollar smile, investors are generally attracted to the US dollar when things are either very good in the US economy and it's outperforming relative to other parts of the world, or when things are very, very grim, when economic growth is very bad, when financial markets are very volatile. And so at the moment, you've got both. And that's another factor which is really driving the dollar higher at this point. Look, when it comes to some of the markets that are likely to be hit harder than most when it comes to this environment, emerging markets in particular do not like the combination of higher bond yields and a stronger US dollar. Conversely, though, but when it comes to Japanese assets, usually dollar strength, dollar yen going higher is actually generally seen as a bit of a risk on trade. Investor is quite optimistic, except when financial markets are a bit shaky, like we're seeing right now. Risk aversion is out there. So that's one thing to go and keep a close eye on at this point of time. In this environment, the US dollar, there is not a lot of fundamental factors out there preventing it from going higher.
Thank you, David. もう一つのポイントとしては、ドルインデックスと、ドルがこれだけ強いというところでお話しされてまして、各国の短期、金利差の拡大がドルインデックスの上昇をサポートしているということなんですが、米国の成長見通しは他の先進国経済に比べてはるかに強く、引き締めサイクル終了を示唆する、中央銀行増加している。まだアメリカはまだとはいえですね、増加をしていますよと。で、ドルインデックスに関しては過去10年で最長の連勝と、ずっと強いところが続いてますと。新興国株と債券にとって米ドル高っていうのが逆風になってまして、ドル高が続けば、リスク回避の方向に向かわなければ、日本を含め先進国株には緩やかなプラスというふうにコメントされてました。あと、ちょっと話あったように、ダラースマイルっていう話があって、このにっこりして、私も先ほどちょっと説明されてたんですけど、こうにっこりして、で、チャートみたいな形で、こっちは、ドルが上がればエコノミクス、経済もいいし、いいところもあるけれども、逆のプラスのこの上昇っていうのが、ボラティリティも上がって、リスクも上がると。それのダラースマイルが今それが起きてるよっていうことをお話しされてました。Thank you, David. Please continue.
Well, the dollar smile. Let's go and move on and talk about China, because that's the other big thing that a lot of people are focusing on at the moment. Second biggest economy in the world, very powerful. Geopolitics obviously is also in the realm here, but we're not going to focus on that at the moment. We're going to talk about coming out of the COVID pandemic and some of the things that we've seen at the moment when it comes to how the economy is performing in China. Safe to say that people are very negative. Pessimism is around everywhere at the moment. The reopening growth that was expected, you're going to see activity really accelerate and provide the global economy a boost, has never really materialized. Credit demand is very soft at this point in time. Households continue to go and save quite aggressively. Not a lot of spending is taking place, but we know that already. The markets have gone and readjusted those expectations. I've said here that there is ample scope for China-related assets to reprice higher, so values to go higher in the near to medium term, if we start to go and see the economy even just stabilize rather than and stop falling. If it stabilizes or even improves modestly, things might go and start to look a lot more attractive, given valuations in China are very, very cheap relative to other parts of the world. the chart that we have here as well on this slide is important to go and keep a close context for, because it's basically a track of how economist sentiment is faring versus to what's going on in the actual economy. So it's a measure of what they think is going to happen with economic data and then how the economic data comes out in reality. And you can see at the moment it's moving higher. What it's basically signaling is that for a long period of time earlier this year, almost unilaterally the data was disappointing, coming in weaker than expected. But now it is starting to improve again. The surprises are very equal in terms of downside and upside. So that is being recalibrated. That's really important because it means that a lot of this bad news is being priced in by the markets already, which means that we see that improvement, things might go and start to go and pick up there in China, and then markets that are very reliant upon China and how it fares longer term. One question that gets asked a lot of analysts here at FOREX.com is what's likely to go and take place when it comes to stimulus measures in China. The simple answer is no one really knows exactly under the surface, but what we've seen to date is that a lot of the measures have been very small in scale and very targeted. A lot will come down to what policymakers do with the property market. If we see the property market start to recover, I suspect that given its size, its relevance in the Chinese economy, things will pick up pretty quickly when it comes to the stock market and probably help to go and support the Chinese renminbi as well against the dollar and other crosses such as the Japanese yen. But we're not to the point where we're seeing any widespread stimulus measures like we saw coming just out of the GFC. But that's something to keep a very close eye on, particularly in a market like Japan. The Nikkei, the topics in Tokyo are what you would describe as being more cyclical, value-orientated stock indices, which means that they're very, very susceptible to what happens to changes in economic conditions. Obviously, China is Japan's biggest trade partner, like it is for Australia as well. So what happens in the Chinese economy is going to be very influential on what happens with stock earnings in Japan. So keep a close eye on that. If we see a pickup, one of the areas that I expect to go and see a lot of improvement in would be in Japanese equities, particularly those value cyclical type names. The banks in particular should do well, given with the rising yields that we're seeing at this point of time. Commodities already have a lot of good news priced into them when it comes to things like copper and other industrial metals. So that's already been factored in, but there's others out there at the moment that really haven't picked up at all when it comes to some of the signs of stability in the Chinese economy.
Okay, thank you. 最後のキーとして中国がお話ししていただいたんですが、中国の各種統計ですね、6月以来、マイナス幅というのは小さくなってますよと。で、このチャートが、エコノミストのセンチメントのチャートということで、一番ひどい時から上昇しているということは良くなっているということです。悲観論っていうのは正当化されるが織り込み済みということで、悪いことたくさんいろんなこと悪いニュースとか、経済の指標ももちろん悪かったんですが、もうそれは織り込み済みですよと。で、改善しつつありますというお話でして、今後ですね、中国の経済活動が安定、または改善した場合っていうのは、もうかなり大きなインパクトがあるだろうというふうに考えていて、中国関連資産の再価格上昇の余地は十分にあるというところをおっしゃってました。で、もちろん日本株、為替に大きな影響を与える可能性がありますよというお話されてました。またですね、いろんなコメントだと意見とかはあるものの、的を絞った、景気刺激策っていうのが、継続されているので、家計の余剰貯金だとか経済活動を、押し上げるプラス要因になっているのではないかと。要は変化率に今後期待したいというようなお話をされてました。で、そうですね。あとは新興国通貨、アジア通貨、中国本土株は、センチメントが低迷しているために、こちらも、最も、上昇余地というか、今後上がる可能性も大きいんではないかというところで、先ほどお伝えしたように、日本、近い国っていうのももちろんありますし、輸出輸入の関係も踏まえてですね、日本の株だとか、ドル円に関しても大きな影響を与えるんではないかと。 で、コモディティのこともちょっとお話しされてまして、コモディティっていうのは、堅調ですね、というところではあり、すでに堅調なんだけれども、不動産セクターの見通し、今後の見通しっていうのは鍵ですね、ということもお話をされてました。はい。Thank you.
No problem. Let's go and move along and get to some of the other areas out there. Now, one of the things I was asked to go and look at is how an outsider of Japan views Japan. So I've done my best to go and give my opinions of how I see things playing out right now. I'm 42 years of age, and pretty much since I can remember, Japan has been battling deflation or disinflation. I remember when we had the big run up in valuations in the late 80s. My dad was involved with some of these things, and I
Oh
remember
no.
when it came coming down as well. So it's something that I've been paying pretty close attention to. And one thing I realize is that the deflationary mindset is very hard to shake. I've read articles about firms in Japan apologizing to their customers for raising prices
Oh yeah.
on occasions, even when things. And so someone from Australia, where I think a lot of businesses don't need a second invitation to go and try and increase prices and boost margins. It just reinforces that I think a lot of people expect that we'll never go and see inflation going to pick up again. And the behavior is very much around that as well, which is interesting with what we're seeing at the moment, obviously, because inflation is starting to pick up. We're seeing at the moment it's about double the Bank of Japan 2% target, both for headline and for the core reading, ex-food and energy. But it looks unsustainable, this increase that's coming through at the moment, at least from where I'm sitting. As the Bank of Japan has been talking about, Ueda-san, talking about the need to go and have the virtuous cycle of strong economic growth, feeding into wage growth, and then feeling confident that inflationary mindset is now back in track, still looks a long way off. Looking at some of the details, the recent data that's come out has really been poor. I've been surprised at how weak Japanese household spending has been. Very, very bad numbers, down over 5% year on year when the last figures were released in July. Unfortunately, as well, with a declining population, it makes it very difficult to go and boost inflation. Demographics has been against Japan for a while now. When it comes to about supply and demand, if demand is continuously shrinking, it means that unless supply shrinks as well, you're going to go and have a lot of downside pressure on prices. So that's one area that I just can't see that self-sustaining move to go and get wages growth picking up longer term. It doesn't look like it's going to go and take place at this stage. As I said, recovering household spending, which is about, I think last checked, about 55% of Japanese GDP, really needs to start to go and improve to get me feeling a bit more confident that we'll go and see that inflationary pickup coming through. There are pockets of the Japanese economy from an outsider's perspective that looks like we're doing very well. The tourism sector looks like it's absolutely flying at this point in time. Other external sectors as well, trade-related sectors, seem to be doing very well, thanks in part to the fact that we've seen such a dramatic weakening in the Japanese yen. China as well is one of those swing factors. What happens in China is likely to go and determine as well how Japan's economy comes out of this particular slowdown we're seeing at this point in time. So that's one thing to go and keep a close eye on later this year and into to next year. When it comes to the Japanese stock market, it really does come down to what's going to go and happen with the global economy for those exporter markets, particularly for China. And also what we want to go and see is that strength in the Chinese economy coming through to help those cyclical areas of the market. But relative to other stock indices around the world right now, the Nikkei, the topics look like they are fairly valued, and it looks like the fundamentals are backing up what we've seen recently. Not all stock indices around the world can go and have that at this point in time. So as a pairs trade, Japan is looking as a much more appealing destination here and now than, say, other parts of the world.
Thank you, thank you. このスライドは、 知りたかったことを、ね、海外から見た今の日本ということで、デビッドさん、42歳なんけど、気づいた時からずっと日本はデフレという話をちょっと冒頭でされていて、ニュースとかも見ても値上げを誤ったりとかしてるニュース見て、インタレスティング面白いなと、興味深いという話をしてました。少しずつ、インフレはしているとはいうものの、ただこのデフレマインド払拭するにはやっぱりちょっと難しいということで、意味のある、賃上げがないとインフレは、持続不可能に見えてしまっていると、海外からは。そういうような話でしたね。やっぱり人口が少なくなってきたりとか、国内消費、需要が少ないので仕方ない部分はあると思うんですが、投資の低迷ということを考えると、なかなかインフレということ、その可能性っていうのが低いんじゃないかというところで、ちょっと悲しいなっていうところもあるんですが、そうですね。家計の質回復が必須ですよと。いう話をされてました。ただ一方で、円安のおかげでということもあってですね、輸出セクターというのは好調と。で、先ほど言っていた中国の話もキーという話されてましたけど、中国の安定化というのもやっぱりプラスに働くだろうというところで、海外勢は日本株に強気と。今年の後半から来年の前半ちょっと期待できるんじゃないかということでしたね。輸出は増えてるし、中国も世界、市場経済良くなれば、インフレにつながりやすいので、日本もにお金、日本のマーケットにも資金が集まってくるのではないかと、日経225も割安で買いやすいというふうに思われているというようなコメントがございました。はい。Thank you. Thank you, David.
Not a problem. And keeping with the live nature of this webinar, I can go and tell you the Bank of England has just left rates unchanged at 5.25%. They're expected to go and raise to 5.5%. That was supposed to be 15 times in a row, but didn't do it. Thankfully, I picked that one. Let's go and move on and get to the next slide here in the presentation. And basically having a look at the Bank of Japan meeting tomorrow after we saw the Federal Reserve meeting last night. Now, of course, we got the hawkish hold, as it's called, the Federal Reserve flagging that still likely to be another rate hike later this year, and only 2 rate cuts that are priced in, expected at this point in time by the end of 2024, which is really, really key because the Fed is starting to go and flag that they are likely to go and cut rates next year. The Bank of England, as we just saw then, is basically looking like they're going to go and keep optionality, but they may be finished. The ECB looks like they've finished their tightening cycle for the time being, which for a bank like the Bank of Japan is problematic, because if they were to go and start normalizing policy, if they were to go and scrap yield curve control, YCC that's written here, or go and then abandon negative interest rates at a time when other central banks are easing policy, the Japanese yen will screech higher like you've never seen before. And that's not going to go and help foster any inflationary pressures whatsoever. And it would probably do a lot of damage to the Japanese economy as well, which means that if the Bank of Japan is going to go and do anything when it comes to normalizing policy settings, it basically has to be, in my opinion, by the end of this year. As discussed before, when it comes to the domestic factors in the Japanese economy right now, the Bank of Japan does not have any certainty that we're going to see inflationary mindset change, that wage growth will go and be sustainably higher, leading to higher inflation, which means it's a rock in a hard place. It's a very difficult choice. And I don't think they're going to go and take the option of being experimental and trying to normalize policy before this recovery is fully played out. So I know there is a lot of speculation out there at this point in time. There was a media report that came out a couple of weekends ago talking Ueda to someone in the Japanese press about potentially looking to go and abandon negative interest rate policy by the end of this year if there was enough evidence. But I'm not sure that's really going to be plausible. And I don't think that it maybe was lost. The messaging wasn't quite accurate the way that it came through there, because certainly it doesn't look like there's that pressure coming through. The other thing that a lot of people are talking about at this point in time is what would go first. Would it be yield curve control or negative interest rates? They don't really have a choice, the Bank of Japan. They have to go and get rid of yield curve control first, because if they get rid of negative interest rates, it would decimate Japanese banking system. Earnings will get hit. The curve would get very, very flat and make it very, very difficult to go and make any profit from lending, which is unlikely going to take the place. So yield curve control would have to go first. The other big tool that everyone is focusing on at this point in time is, will the Bank of Japan intervene in the FX market again on behalf of the government? They can try, but unless we see that the big pullback in US yields, it's just going to be very, very small dips, and they will be bought immediately, because it's fundamentally strength in the US economy and yields which is driving this move. So the Bank of Japan really can't go and do too much to go and do that. They can go and let longer dated yields go and push up a little bit, and the curve go and steepen a little bit to narrow that interest rate differential. But apart from that, they really need to go and wait till the US yields start to go and fall back to get a meaningful response. I can't see them intervening anytime soon. There's been some commentary out over the last little bit. Matsuno-san, I hope I pronounced that correctly, was out today talking about having all policy options on the table. But I don't think it's really necessary at this point. The threat is there, but unless it's a really disjointed move, I can't see the Bank of Japan intervening at this point.
ありがとうございます。Thank you very much. 日銀の今後の話という方針ということで、政策金利の方向性はどうなのかというところでコメントいただいてるんですが、賃金の基軸、改善しない限り、政策金利、YCC に変更なしというところで、思っていますよというお話されておりましたね。はい。他の先進国の中央銀行が反対方向に動いているため、日銀だけ引き締めを行うのはやっぱり難しいんではないかと。さっきはこのセミナー前に今かネバーっていうふうに言ってましたが、ちょっと最初にコメントあったように、先ほどイギリスの中央銀行も据え置きということで、政策金利を予想が 5.5% だったの、今結果として 5.25 と、前回 5.25% なので据え置きとしたというところもあって、各国がこれから金利を下げようというふうにしているときに、日本だけ上げるっていうのはなかなか厳しいんじゃないかということをおっしゃっておりました。はい。正常化の機会の窓は閉じつつあるみたいな、The Window of Opportunity って書いてありますけど、そういう形でおっしゃってましたね。で、銀行セクター、やっぱり、痛みを避けるためには、NIRP、マイナス金利付き量的質的金融緩和ですね。ゼロ金利政策の前に YCC を終了する必要がありますよと、順序立てて YCC 先に、イールドカーブコントロールをやめてから、金融緩和、ゼロ金利政策っていうのをやめないといけないねという話をされてまして、基本的に銀行債券買ってますので、はい。で、為替の介入リスクですね。今ちょっとお話しされてましたけども、介入リスクっていうのは高まってるんですが、日米の利回り格差が縮小しない限り、ドル高の防止にあんまり、効果はないんじゃないかというところでおっしゃってました。で、10年もの、10年債ですね、日本の10年国債の利回りの上昇っていうのを容認することが、日本円の上昇を支えるより効果的な方法であると。要は、デビットさんの考えとしては、早く YCC をやめた方がいいと。今やるか、ネバーかというところで、どんどん世界の政策金利が今後は下げていこうという中で、日本だけ上げていこうっていう、日本だけ違うことをやるっていうのはどんどん難しくなるというようなお話をされております。Thank you very much.
Can you see the
Yes.
updated
Yes.
chart there now?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So this is what I'm talking about. This is probably going to be a better mechanism right now because the markets are very fast moving. So I'm going to have to go and think on the run quite literally. So at the moment, you can see the 50-day moving average has been breached. It's spent a lot of time and it's respected that 50-day moving average a lot over the past few years. So that to me is quite significant that it didn't manage to go and hold that at this point. it's resting right now on that support that kicks in around about 32,300 to go and break down, then it would go and herald probably a move back down towards here. There's nothing in terms of any meaningful visual support in this particular space. So it looks like at this point in time, based off the recent price action, if this level were to go, I feel safe to say that the bullish bias for Japanese stocks is over for the time being. I've highlighted here some of the big landmarks as well. 2021 double top, so that would be a really, really key support zone as well. So when you talk about no downside levels to watch, 31,300 and then around about 30,800 or so would be the most logical targets to go and look for. But certainly some of the strength in the Japanese yen that we'll discuss later on is contributing to that move today. Is the risk-off move more broadly? So some pretty fast markets. I'll just briefly go and show as well when it comes to MACD. You can see that's gone and rolled over. That's generating a sell signal there as well. And when it comes to other factors like RSI, it is also looking pretty bad at this point in time. If we can just go and get that up, you can see there. So that was confirming the bullish bias, and all of a sudden it's broken very convincingly. And so to me, it just says from a technical perspective, more downsides likely than upside from here.
Okay. ありがとうございます。Thank you very much. この方が良かったです。シェアしてくれると分かりやすいですね。失礼いたしました。ここ、今話されてたのが32,400ポイントのところですかね。ここをこう下回ると、次は31,200ポイントほどまでこう下がる余地があって、その下だとさらに行くと37,788というところで、今の状況を見てると、やはり下向き、下落、ショートポジションが、適切だなというお話をされてました。MACD に関してもかなり、今、下落を示してますねという説明があったところです。で、そうですね、ノックアウトオプションとかで、ぜひぜひちょっとトレードいただければなと思うんですが、リスクを限定してというところで、そうですね、上のところ、ノックアウトレベル置いてですね、今、下に行く可能性が高いということですので、ショートポジション入れていただいてもいいんじゃないかなというふうに思ってます。Thank you.
Let's go and have a look at one that's likely to go and see just as much downside, if not more. I'll go and switch now to the NASDAQ, the US Tech 100 at FOREX.com. Hopefully you can see that on your screen. It too has broken down technically and does not look healthy in the slightest. So you can see for a long period of time, it was in a beautiful uptrend, just kept going and going and going and going. And then that surprised a lot of people this year, but then it's run into downtrend resistance, and it tried once, twice, three times, and just kept trying to go and bump up like that, could not go and crack it. And then what you've seen recently is that it's all of a sudden dribbled out of the uptrend. And then this bar here, you can see, was what happened overnight. That's post the Federal Reserve meeting. And since then, it's gone on with the move. So it's down around about 1% or so in European trade right now. At this point, it's still looking pretty ugly. You can see that we're getting confirmation from RSI. When it comes to the MACD indicator as well, it too has crossed over. So that's generated a sell signal. So it's telling us that it looks like the bias is to the downside at this point in time. Now, you can see there's a couple of support levels to go and watch. These are not very big support levels, mind you, but they're ones to go and keep a close eye on. Around about 14,700 would be the next level to go and watch for support. And then probably more importantly, 14,550. That one there would lastly be the one of last resort. If that were to go and break, there is not a lot of support down below that particular level until we get to 13,700. If you go back, you'll see why I point that out, because that was the peak that we saw back in August last year. So like the Nikkei, like pretty much every major stock industry we're seeing in the developed world right now, the NASDAQ, the Tech 100 is breaking down. And look, for the time being, the bias is to the downside. I'd like to go and see these levels go first, to be honest, before initiating shorts, because there's still a lot of room between here and here at this point in time. The fact that you've got some resistance levels, support levels here, tells me that it might be a bit of a struggle to go and get through here, at least initially.
はい、ありがとうございます。昨日起きたことで、今、下落トレンドに向かっているというお話されてまして、MacD、ちょっと今質問いただいてるんですけど、ちょっと今、英語私もすごい苦手で、後でちょっと後ほど確認してお答えさせていただきますね。すいません。昨日起きたことで下落トレンドですよとお話しいただいていて、そうですね、MacD もこのクロスしているので、売りを示してますねっていうことをおっしゃってました。で、ここを今ブレイクすると、直近の、安値ですね、をブレイクすると、かなり次のところまで幅があるので注意が必要という話をされておりました。はい、thank you very much.
No problem. Let's go to the we might get to some of the FX we can look into that as well. Just very quickly, it's a very similar story to the NASDAQ is what we're seeing with the SP 500. Yet again, it's still within a broader uptrend at this point in time, but it's gone and broken uptrend support here pretty convincingly overnight. We're approaching a support level here around about 43.30 or so. If that were to go, that would open a move up potentially to the lower rung here of the uptrend channel. That's around about 4,230. Very similar story to what we're seeing when it comes to the NASDAQ at this point in time. The bias is to the downside. How quickly it goes and gets there, I think that the initial move might be rejected a little bit. There might be a bit of apprehension to sell, but I think that there'll be some further downside to come, depending on what your risk appetite and your time frame for trading. If we can we go and move now to some of the FX pairs? I really want to go and look at dollar yen because it's been very, very interesting.
Yeah, please.
What's been happening in this particular space? So, talking about uptrends, it's been on a beautiful uptrend for a long period of time. Just keeping going. And you can see at the moment, having gone and broken higher post the Federal Reserve meeting, it's been in this nice little uptrend for the better part of a couple of months. It was looking like it was going to go back in, and I was feeling quite bullish about it. But since we've spoken, what we're seeing at the moment is that it's now gone and reversed a little bit. So what you're seeing at the moment is actually below 148 to the dollar at this point in time. So it's back around about the same levels it was before the Federal Reserve meeting, which maybe suggests there's a bit of risk aversion out there, maybe some repatriation flows coming back into the yen against other crosses. But this is really interesting as well. I don't think this is being driven by speculation or positioning ahead of the Bank of Japan tomorrow. But it does go and sort of change the picture as to what is likely to go and take place from here. If there was to be a reversal around this 148 level and see fall back to down to one here, there's every chance that we could go and see the yen move back to here towards 146. It's very fast markets at this point in time. So I'm trying to go and think on the run when it comes to some of these trading ideas. The bias still looks like it's to the upside. But one thing is concerning me here. You can see that we've got bearish divergence when it comes to the RSI indicator. It's been going up dollar yen, but RSI has been going down. So momentum behind the move isn't there, but certainly what we're seeing recently means that there might be some two-way price action at this point in time. If this level was to go and sort of hold around about 148, then honestly, I think that even with the threat of intervention and the like, we could probably go and see dollar yen get back towards those levels that we saw last year when there was intervention. This is obviously the multi-decade high that we hit. If we can hold around this 148 level for a day or so and really go and stabilize and maybe get through that Bank of Japan meeting, we might go and see this move start to go and continue again up. The uptrend is still very strong at this point in time. But yeah, just some interesting moves that are going on at the moment. So obviously, there's a bit of risk aversion out there at this point in time.
Thank you. そうですね。 チャート見てかなり上昇をずっとしてきていて、ただこのRSI は下落を示していたりして、どっちとも言えないというところで、モメンタムは少し下がってるんじゃない、下落かという話ではあるものの、彼としては長期的なアイデアというところもあるかなと思うんですが、今の水準で、調整をするのであれば、明日、おそらく何も日銀の政策金利の発表も変更ないと思うというところでですね、もしそれがあるのでないという話で148円台で今の推移をするのであれば、おしめ買いで、152円、去年の高値に向かって値上がりをする可能性はあるんじゃないかということを言ってます。で、その時に、ストップロス、ノックアウトオプションでノックアウトレベルというところで147円と30銭のところあたりにですね、しっかりストップロスを置いて、上昇を狙うというところもありではないかという話ですね。引き続き、かなり強い上昇傾向にはあるので、ファンダ的にはやっぱりこれ、さらに上昇するというふうに見ておりますが、一方で、かなり変動激しいマーケットにはなるということも、コメントされていました。はい。Thank you very much.
That's good. I'm looking it's a pretty clear-cut story right now. The downtrend is very strong, and it looks like it wants to go and continue at this point in time. I might go and zoom in just quickly to go and show what we're looking at here. But yeah, for the time being, the euro dollar is just a sell at this point. There is no real reason to get excited about its prospects. Certainly, when you look here, breaking moving averages everywhere, RSI saying that it's not oversold, but it's very much confirming the bearish trend. MACD is also very much in one direction as well. This level here, you can see uptrends support that have been holding for a period. It looks like that's breaking down as well, which would go and open up a move to around about 105.10 here. Actually, that's an anomaly right there. We should open a move up to around about 105, 104.80 or so. That would be, if you're looking to go short now, I'll look to go and have a stop somewhere around this level up here. And then I'll be looking for a move down to around about 105 for a take profit. But the trend is very, very strong at this point in time. The fundamentals that are underpinning the euro are weakening all the time. It's hard to get excited about it. The bias is still very much to the downside.
Okay, thank you. ユーロに関しては、かなり、ダウンサイド、下落するという、ところで考えてますと。で、1.05 のところぐらいまでは、下落する可能性があるというところで、コメントされております。はい。Thank you very much. We are like almost time. So let me share my screen.
Not a problem. Sorry for overrunning, but a lot of things going on at this
No,
point in the
it's
market.
okay.
Very
I
busy
know.
day.
A lot of things is going on right now. これとこれ。よいしょ。はい。ありがとうございました。一旦私の方に、説明をさせていただければと思います。すいません。少々お待ちください。よいしょ。はい、失礼しました。はい。ありがとうございます。セミナー参加していただいて。で、日本語で、事前に、質問いただいてまして、すいません、コメントもいただいてたので、後ほど必ず、コメント返させていただきますね。アナリストとしてデビッドさんにトレード戦略上、自分なりに重要視しているところ、どれですかということで3つ、教えてくださいという質問をいただいてたので、これだけ答えて事前にいただいたのでお話しさせていただきたいと思います。まず1つ目がリスク管理が重要ですと いうところで、ストップの保護なしでポジションを実行しないでくださいというようなダイレクト、日本語訳にするとダイレクトになりますね。ノックアウトオプション等を使ってですね、損切りラインは必ず入れて、エントリーしてくださいということが一番、リスク管理が一番大事だというところで、あとはノイズを遮断します。どういうことかというと、重要なこと、集中するの難しくなりますよね。いろんな情報があるので、数字とかデータとか、意見等々ありますと。ただ、彼にとっては、それは中央銀行と債券市場、そしてドルというところで、そのベース、自分の考えのベースっていうのをぶらさないで、それで判断してトレードをするというところが大事ですよという話をされてました。あとですね、テクニカル分析は、トレーダーがどのように反応するか教えてくれますよと。で、ファンダメンタル分析は市場がどういうふうに反応するか教えてくれますということで、両方を理解して取引すること、トレードすることで、取引の成功の幅を最大限に活かせますよというコメントをいただいておりますので、はい、よろしくお願いします。この、リスク管理、不要な情報、自分の決めた情報以外に振り回されないということと、テクニカル分析、テクニカルとファンダメンタル両方の組み合わせが大事ですということでした。はい。最後に株価指数 CFD 新規応援キャンペーンということで、今日日経と、ナスダック、S&P なんかも解説していただいたんですが、ダウントレンドということで、ちょっと下落予想されますという話もされてましたので、ぜひぜひ、今までCFD 取引されてない方、またはその弊社に口座がまだない方が対象になってますので、明日ですね、メールを送らせていただきますので、そちらで応募するボタンがあります。そちらを押していただくと参加できますので、ぜひぜひ、2週間以内だった14日以内ですね、に初めてトレードしていただいた方には、取引応援資金として1000円贈呈させていただきますので、この機会にぜひちょっとチャレンジしていただければなと思います。はい、すごい最後駆け足になったんですが、こちらのQR コードからですね、ノックアウトオプションのご説明、直接、Zoom でレクチャーさせていただきますので、取引方法とか商品性わからないよっていう方は、ぜひこちらも申し込んでですね、申し込みいただいて、ご解説させていただきますので、株価指数 FX でノックアウトオプションを使えますので、ぜひぜひご利用いただければなと思いますので、よろしくお願いします。はい。すいません。チャート、ごめんなさい。シェアがこれでしたね。今見れますかね。シェア画面が。はい。見えておりますかね。はい。大丈夫そうですね。ぜひぜひ、ちょっと、応募していただければと思います。こちら QR コードになってますので、よろしくお願いします。はい、失礼しました。デイビッドさんはどこにいるかな。Thank you for David. Thank you for today.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope everyone has great success with their trading out there. And I'll make sure that I have something up about dollar yen, some trade recommendations tomorrow, either before or after the Bank of Japan, when we've got a closer proximity to that event. Because obviously a lot of moving parts right now. But thank you so much for your time this evening. I hope you have a great night.
OK、ありがとうございました。Thank you. はい、ありがとうございました。すいません。時間になってしまったので、一旦締めさせていただくんですが、いただいたご質問ですね、後ほど返させていただきますので、よろしくお願いします。デビッドさんも、今日、明日また情報いろいろ出ると思うんですが、それを踏まえて、またコメントいただけるということだったので、今後も発信させていただきますので、よろしくお願いします。本日はどうもありがとうございました。Thank you.